Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm the Reverend Christine Dance, and I am honored to serve as the minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. Welcome to UUCP's online worship service. Right where you are right now, take a deep breath. So many of us have been holding our breaths for so long, since Tuesday, since March, since 2016, holding our breaths, wondering what might happen. For whoever you are, the joyful, the brokenhearted, the fearful, the exhausted, you are welcome here. In this gathering where we come to feed our souls and heal our hearts and be together in community. For now, we might just be able to breathe. Let us worship together. In this time when we are physically distant, we believe it is an act of love to worship online. But it is important to still be together. So welcome to our worship, welcome home. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, this time, focused on diverse theological perspectives, radical inclusion, and knowing that issues of justice and equity shape everything that we do. With a special awareness for those who have been historically marginalized, we welcome all of every race, class, ethnicity, immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious background, mental and physical ability and disability. We welcome your whole self, your family, and all of you into our worship as we build a community of caring, courage, and hope. I invite you to grab a chalice or candle as we recite our covenant and light our chalice together. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship. Thus do we covenant. Let me introduce our worship team this morning. Our director of music is Benji Messer. Our director of children's ministry is Katie Resendez. Our worship associate today is Joseph Benesh. Our Zoom operator is Justin Walgren. And our chat chaplain today is Carrie Lifshitz. Our chat is open, so you can chat with everyone or just to our panelists running our services. Please feel free to say hi to everyone. As always, we invite you to check in to UUCP on social media with the hashtag UUAnywhere. There are a few announcements in the life of our community. All of these announcements can be found in our weekly online newsletter, Compass. You can sign up for Compass on our website, that is phoenixuu.org. So here's some things going on this week. This Wednesday, our music director, Benji Messer, will host an open mic hour from 6:30 to 8. Come join to listen or to share music, poetry, jokes, skits, dance, visual arts, or whatever else you can think of. We need some fun and creativity. To keep UUCP's music lovers connected, our pianist Mary Coda is recording interviews with UUCP musicians. Mary recently interviewed instrumentalist Igor Glenn about his lifetime of musical adventures. The link to the interview is posted in the chat, and these interviews are true gems and you don't want to miss them. They're all on our YouTube page. It is not too late to help the Earth Justice Ministry build a collection of your favorite meatless, vegan, or vegetarian recipes for their Eat Plants for the Planet recipe collection to support meatless ethical eating. Please email them soon to uujministry@gmail.com. And it is fundraising time again at UUCP. And like so many other things, we are tossing out the tradition and trying something completely new. January 30th, put it in your calendar, January 30th at 7 p.m., we will be hosting Adventure Tales, a radically inclusive evening of storytelling on Zoom. This is a chance for us to share our stories and raise some money at the same time. For this to be a success, we need your participation. If you can be thinking about a story to tell, that would be great. Full information is in this week's Compass, and you can get all of the details on our website. We cannot wait to hear your stories. And finally, there will be no lunch with the minister this week and no Vespers this week because I will be out of town visiting my kids. And finally, we are collecting our offering virtually, just like our service. We do ask you to be generous in your giving, support the mission of this beloved community. You can text UUCP to 73256. You can donate through the website, or you can send an old-fashioned check. For all that you give to our congregation, we are so grateful.
Good morning, everyone. After all the anxiety and the polarization of this election, I think we deserve to celebrate just that it's over. There's still work to do, of course, but let's go into that work excited, ready to enjoy it, not discouraged. In the words of the old gospel tune turned civil rights anthem, let's wake up this morning with our mind on freedom. Here we go. I woke up this morning with my mind, it was set on freedom. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind, it was set on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Walking and talking with my mind set on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind set on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind, it was set on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Everybody now walk, 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 walk. Go with your mind on freedom, or crawl or roll. However you go, with your mind on freedom. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Walk, walk, walk. Everybody now talk, 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 talk. Tell me about it. Get your mind on freedom. Talk, 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 talk. With your mind on freedom. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Talk, 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 and tell me now. There ain't no harm to keep your mind, set on freedom. Oh well, there ain't no harm to keep your mind set on freedom. Oh, there ain't no harm to keep your mind, set on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Thanks, all.
That was amazing, Benji. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Katie Resendez, and I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUC Phoenix. Let's tell a story today. When my people first came here, we knew there had been people here before, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, maybe 100 years. But there was no sign of them except for small circles of rock. And my people brought with them memories of floods, memories of cold, cold winters, memories of dry, dry summers. We'd seen places where it was impossible to grow food. We'd seen places where animals couldn't survive, and we needed to settle. And the golden and red dirt here told us that maybe it could be home. And when we saw the sunset, a million colors, different every night, we knew it was home. But we knew that those memories of floods and droughts and chills and heat needed to stay with us. We knew that we had to do work to make this home. So our first step was water, and we dug, at first, irrigation ditches that were small just to feed our plants, but soon those irrigation ditches became true canals. And we used the sun rising and setting to give us straight lines, to lay a grid of canals, and our people flourished. We grew to 50,000 people. We stayed for 1,000 years. And those canals nourished us. Yes, they brought water to our food. They kept us from starving. They kept us from our thirst. But they also kept our community building together. And we learned and taught one another. And for years and years and years, we built those canals. And yes, after about 1,000 years, in about 1450 to be exact, we left. But it wasn't because we ran out of water. When my people came, it was for the gold rush. We were mostly men. Some of us brought our families, but we came to prosper, and we saw the gold in that dirt that other people had before. And so many towns across this desert grew up in this time, but we had an advantage. You see, when we got here, we found something. And what we found was these rivers made by people that had been baking in the Sonoran sun for 400 years. They were strong, they were solid, and we could use them. And we could use them to make sure that we still had water, even when it got too dry, even in the summers here when it gets really, really hot. So we were able to push on through, and we were able to stay and make a city right on that grid that had been there, using those exact same canals. And you know, that was good because this was one of the first times that non-Indigenous people with pale skin like mine, had lived under that Sonoran sun. And we needed water and we needed trees. But you see, in about 1890, there was a terrible drought. And we had enough water, but people got real scared and a lot of people moved on. Because they had just come looking for the gold in the first place. And so when things got scary, some of them got going. But those of us who stayed knew that those canals could keep us alive. And they did. In 1906, the Reclamation Act was passed, and it provided funding and materials and labor to build canals and water and do land management all throughout the Southwest. And what that meant in Phoenix and in the Sonoran Desert was that we could build huge canals, Grand Canals, Arizona canals, the canals that are still there today. That infrastructure eventually led to our city and our state government being built and being able to support not just thousands, but millions of people, and to give them water and to develop that science. And in fact, some of the things around water conservation, I know this sounds crazy. I know you think that we're a desert city that should not exist, but some of Arizona and Phoenix's water conservation is used the world over and is still seen as best practices because some of it is still good science, some of it. And our city grew. When I came to Phoenix in 2005, I was a teacher just off of South Mountain at a little school. And I got here, my first week in Phoenix was the first week of August 2005. There were 3 days that the temperature was over 117. I was moving from Virginia and Massachusetts. Humidity, my curls were beautiful and perfect. By the end of that week, I had straight hair and I had sweated everything away. It was really, really hot. Moving into 2006, Phoenix had 143 days without rain. 143 days. And to be honest, in that time, there was this like, not just thirst, but hunger and this longing that people entered into. And it was like we could remember back then, we could remember the canals. And I found out that so many of our roads, our perfect grid, were built right on top of the canals using that exact same east to west, north to south that we had used before. And it was amazing. And it was desperate. 143 days. And the day that it rained, it actually started at night. And it was a Friday night, late at night. And I admit I was out dancing. And everyone left the club to go stand outside. And people rejoiced and people danced in the rain and people laughed and people cried. But not just with happiness, with grief that they had been carrying, with fear. And people were angry. And people yelled and shouted. And it was happy and exciting and scary and sad and everything for these little minuscule drops of rain that were coming. And luckily the next few days brought more rain. This past week, I'll tell you that it's felt a little bit like maybe it would never rain again. There were days where it felt like the desperation in our country was just going to go on and we were helpless. And then yesterday, the rain poured down. Okay, maybe not the real rain, but we felt that nourishing. We felt that rejuvenation. We felt that rebuilding to come, and it was so exciting. And it is easy to think that the rain is just going to keep coming and that we will always get to dance in the puddles. But we have to reach back, and we have to remember that our roads are built on canals that were built by hands of people who came and said, I remember the drought, and I know it's in our past, and I know it's in our future too. And we're going to be ready. And we're going to teach our community how to build. We're going to remember the lessons of our ancestors. We're going to push, 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 push. So whether or not it's pouring down or completely dry, we're going to be there and we're going to be ready, right? The rain's going to come, but so are the dry times, but we're here. And we're going to fight like hell to keep each other alive, no matter what, because we are powerful. You are so very powerful, and you are so very loved.
Oh, Anne, that was beautiful. That's beautiful. Nessun dorma, never sleep. That will tie in later, actually. Oh, my beloveds, has it only been a week? Are you sure it hasn't been 500 days, 600 days since we saw each other last? It is the time now where we share the joys and sorrows of our community. Being together, it is good to share, to support each other, and to connect. So please write any joys or sorrows you've got in the chat. Please put your name at the front of it. If you want it to be private just to me, then put private at the front and I won't read it aloud. And I am going to give a blanket joy and sorrow for our elections this week, the local, the national, with gratitudes, joys, and worries. So, and I will be talking about it later. So I'm going to respectfully ask that we keep the joys and sorrows not about politics and focused on ourselves, our families, and our community here. Speaking of elections, here's a blanket statement. Our Unitarian Universalist denomination, for those of you who don't know, doesn't have a creed or statement of belief, but it has 7 principles that we use to guide us. Our 5th principle is the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. So this was a 5th principle week. And was it ever on display? I want to give a shout out to all of you who worked on campaigns, wrote letters, texted and called voters, worked at the polls, acted as poll defenders. Some of you went out and made music and dancing at the polls. You were all part of our democracy this week that resulted in the highest number of voters ever in our country's history. Bravo. A special shout out to everyone in our community who are organizers. UU Jazz did an amazing job, and all of our community partners who have been working on voter engagement and turnout for years. You made a difference. And the thing that made me cry the most this week, a milestone in our first female, Black, Indian, and from immigrants vice president. This is a historic milestone. The glass ceiling has been shattered there, and we cannot underestimate how important that is for young people to see themselves represented in our country's leadership. I also want to note that this week is Veterans Day. And to communicate the values within it, we remember Armistice Day on November 11th, marking the armistice signed between the Allies of World War I and Germany. And Veterans Day is meant to encompass all of the veterans of all wars, but we do not only remember the skills and sacrifices of war our veterans have made, but also each of their actions for peace. May we add our actions of peace to theirs. Thank you, veterans, for all the ways you've served and sacrificed for all of our communities. And I must remember the sorrow of the human cost of this pandemic. More than 254,000 Americans have died, including over 6,000 in Arizona. The anticipation is that there will be over 400,000 by the time this administration is over. Let us remember that there are humans and unimaginable grief behind that ever daunting number. Now let us turn to the joys and sorrows of our community. Joan Gale says that Bill Snowden is home and doing very well after his aneurysm repair on Friday. He is very grateful for each text, call, email that helps to cheer him up. You both, we are sending you so much love. And Amy Miskell is concerned that she may be losing her health insurance due to the Supreme Court that will be hearing that on Tuesday. Please keep her and all of those who might be affected in their prayers. Marshall Valentine says, please keep my family and friends informing the last few days of COVID diagnosis in your hearts. The heart work continues on. It does. It does. Katie Pacelli Klinger says, I am so excited that my sister Maria is joining us today from her home in New Hampshire. Welcome, welcome, Maria. We're glad you're here. Michelle and Sam are so grateful to have our daughter, Shannon Kirkland Morgan, working from our home for the next few months. How wonderful. How terrific. Mary McManus says, joyful to say that my 18th birthday was a couple of weeks ago, just in time to vote. Woo, Mary, happy birthday and congratulations. A joy. Carrie and Johnny Lifshitz celebrate their 22nd wedding anniversary today. Congratulations. Love, laughter, community, and hard work have been a blessing. Here's to 22 more. John Williamson says, daughter Marianne is studying hard for her real estate license exam. Wonderful. And a sorrow from Carrie Lifshitz. Mourning the loss of my dear friend from high school, David Schneer. He performed Johnny's and my wedding ceremony 22 years ago. He passed away from a brain tumor on Tuesday. How to have those two at the same time. Sending love to you both. From Keith Brown and Shelley Stevenson, what a joy last week to see friends old and new while pole observing and witness the reunion tour of Benji Messer's New Orleans Jazz Band. Play on. Jira says, I planted 14 plants in our garden today. Wonderful. Bob Davis says, just put an offer in on a house. Terrific. And I'm seeing some frums, but I don't have any joys and sorrows on there. So Jan Kaplan and Helen Walker say, Helen and I celebrate 7 years of legal marriage tomorrow, within 32 years of our heart commitment. The moral arc of the universe continues to bend towards justice. Donna Talbot shares with us that Terry had eye surgery. I'm just building a little bit more on here, but there was a tear in the cataract. So they are going back and doing some fixing on it. So sending lots of love to Donna and Terry right now. Sylvia Lemus Sharma says, the sorrow of the passing of an elder teacher, Maria, is mourned in Mexico City today. Paul and Barbara Playford want to announce that today is the 102nd birthday of Barb's mom. She is in very good condition, better than Barb's. She doesn't use a cane or anything, and we miss her. She's in Ohio, and we are here, but we love her. And Richard Plattner leaves us on a good note. Happy for cool weather so my mountain girl wife can sit on the porch while I wear 3 layers of sweats. So your wife is wearing less, you're wearing sweats. That's what we do in Arizona, right? We get used to that. Okay, oh dear ones. All right, it's time for a time of meditation and prayer. I want you to center yourselves. I've been doing meditations with you all week. Lower your shoulders, put your feet on the floor, settle in place, take a few deep breaths. What a week, what a month, what a year, what 4 years, what a life. This service is called Sigh, and we're going to do a meditation on sighing. For those of you who were hoping for a once and done, an earthquake, a tidal wave, hoping that if we gave it our all, a single push would be enough, I share with you a sigh. Acknowledging that things are more complex than we wish. For those of you who saw all the millions of people who didn't repudiate misogyny, racism, authoritarianism, xenophobia, homophobia, and transphobia, who felt the scab of fear ripped open with yet another reminder that your identity makes you less in someone's eyes, we send a sigh of hurt, solidarity, and hopefully a warm blanket of comfort. For those of you who were joyful, celebratory, dancing in the streets, tearful, I wish you a sigh of happiness. For those of you who have been anxious, worried, feeling that this is more than you can carry, I wish you a sigh of relief. Bringing oxygen in your lungs after too long of holding your breath, and noting the little places where one piece of it is over. For those of you who didn't have your person win the election, whichever election, I wish you a sigh of disappointment. For all of you who are still holding your breath for COVID, the transition, for personal worries, for all the things that this year may still bring, I sigh with you and hope that your lungs still get enough air. In gratitude for the oxygen that makes all of these sighs possible, take a breath with me. And a community in which we can sigh together again. We say thank you. Let's take a moment to just sigh and take breaths together. Let us know that as our sighs represent all of these feelings, it is our hands and our work that will continue to change the world. Amen. Blessed be, and Ashe.
Just my hands can't tear a prison down. Just your hands can't tear a prison down. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Just my voice can't shout to make them hear. Just your voice can't shout to make them hear. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Just color line. Just your will can't break the color line. But if 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Just my strength can't build a bridge of peace. Just my strength can't build a bridge of peace. But if 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Just my heart can't turn this world around. Just your heart can't turn this world around. But if 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. And we'll turn this world around. Yes, if 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round.
That was beautiful. First, I want to thank Jesus. I want to thank Allah. I want to thank Buddha. I want to thank the flying spaghetti monster. I want to thank baby Yoda. I want to thank anybody and everybody that helped. All levity aside, if you prayed, if you voted, thank you. Because remember, we are on indigenous land that for a while was Mexico. And there are people here who are more of this land than me and my ancestors, and they can't vote. So if you did any and all of those things, thank you. I wrote this yesterday morning, a few days after Reverend Dance prefers to hear from us worship associates on what we're going to say. So if you do the math on that, yeah, I was supposed to come up with something on Wednesday when I and the rest of the world were like, come on, Nevada. Like, yeah. So now it's Sunday. The election is mostly over. So I just kind of wanted to share my heart with everyone, all parties, all people, all voters. And what I want to ask is something that I feel like we already do here in this congregation, which is for us to try to lead with unconditional love. This is something that I still remind myself of regularly in our society because it's not easy. And it's because also I wanted to say that I don't think the enemy to unconditional love is hate. I think it's the fact that we're all still mostly animals and we still fall so easily into ideas of good and bad, right and wrong, or what I call the binary. Because I don't think any one system is right or wrong. I don't think any one person is good or bad. And I will qualify that ask to lead with unconditional love is also born of my privilege, my white male cisgendered privilege, because I am not in this country. I'm not being profiled. I'm not being shot at. I'm not having my body threatened by government control. But the extra qualification there is unconditional love doesn't mean you have to accept a person into your life. I disowned my biological father years ago for spreading hate, because sometimes the best way to love someone is from afar. So I will try to live in that nuance in between the binaries, I will try to live in the only reality, which is that all 7.5 billion of us on this planet are beautiful, different, imperfect, amazing, and whole. And I just hope that we can remember that in this congregation politically as we move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. Yeah, leading with love. Well, in honor of everyone who voted and those who worked on this election, I wanted to sing a song about that, Answering the Call of Love by the Unitarian Universalist musician Jason Shelton. And this congregation sang this song a lot while organizing against SB 1070, Arizona's infamous Show Me Your Papers law. So feel free to sing along. The lyrics will be in the chat. The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide. And so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we've found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love. Thanks all.
What a perfect song, thank you. So this will make sense, I promise. But I want to tell you about a project that my wife Karen and I have got. We are digging out a section of knee wall and dirt in our backyard. It's a totally useless short wall. It's not, there's a big wall that goes out, it's got a pretty tree and stuff. And then it comes in and then it goes out, but not as much. And there's nothing you can plant there. And it's stupid. Like it just doesn't need to be there. It looks weird and out of place. And we're hoping to replace it with raised garden beds. We're hoping that some of you are going to teach us how to garden in Arizona. But first, we need to dig out the old stuff. So of course, we started this project in May, and it turns out that digging and schlepping, digging dirt around in Arizona summers is hot. And it turns out that the dirt here in Arizona is hard. So we've been doing one wheelbarrow at a time, sometimes one per day, sometimes one per week. Lately, it's been one per month. We've been learning which tools dig up the earth the best, and we're learning that it just takes a lot of time to keep chopping at it, to get it loose and shovel it away. So I think that's been the perfect metaphor for how this week has felt, like chipping away at a wall or a mountain. And a little bit that's how this sermon is as well. There is so much dirt that we need to dig into. There's so much of the wall. Honestly, there's more than we can sort through today. And really, I don't know if I've got it all clear in my head. It probably would have been a better sermon if I could give it on, say, Wednesday. But here we are. So I'm going to take the dirt that I see and put it in 3 different piles. Pile 1, we're going to wrestle with some of the complicated truths. Pile 2, we're going to talk about this unity thing that we're hearing everyone talk about. And pile 3, I want to address our personal and national trauma. Okay, so here's the first pile, the complicated truths. I've had all the feels this week, and a lot of them are pride and joy. We saw our first female Black, Asian, child of immigrants vice president. We saw someone acting like a president, putting our citizens before himself, calling for care and science, acknowledging the rich diversity of America, acknowledging the pain of those who have lost loved ones to the pandemic, all the things that I knew that I missed, but I didn't realize how impactful it would feel to actually see and hear it. I have so much gratitude for all of the organizers, Go Stacey Abrams, all of them who worked for free and fair elections, and all of the gains that happened in Arizona. And especially when I think of how much happened in here in Arizona that started with the reaction to SB 1070, creating activists, organizers, people dedicated to the rights of immigrants, and that extended to the rights of everyone. And the seeds that they planted in that hard Arizona dirt a decade ago are sprouting into beautiful plants now. Nationwide, we saw our first transgender state legislator, exponentially more LGBTQ, Black, Native, and female legislators all across the country. And we saw millions and millions and millions of people, the most in history, who voted despite a pandemic, despite the threats against the Postal Service and slowing down the mail, despite false claims about a rigged election. When I think about the American people who said, hell no, that is not how this works. That is not how we do this. This is not the America I believe in. And they found a way to get out and vote against all of those odds. And each individual vote was like a shovel in that hard dirt to reclaim and protect our democracy. Gives me chills. And I have joy that the man who empowered racist, xenophobic, homophobic, and transphobic thoughts gave them credibility, not created them, just to be clear, will not be able to do that from the people's house come January. I was amazed at both the American people and the media, who basically ignored the calls of fraud and legal versus illegal votes and just kept counting. They just kept counting. It was like our DNA knew how to do this. Just keep counting, ignore the other voices. The counts are the counts. All of this felt like our soil was rich and would be fertile for excellent planting. But then I found a lot of stones in the soil as well. A lot of really soil that was going to need a lot of chipping away. I was one of them who wanted a landslide. I wanted a clear repudiation of the misogyny, the xenophobia, all of the racism. I wanted to hope that the first election of that person was kind of a fluke or a rejection of politics as usual, that I could understand how people just didn't know. But the sheer quantity of votes that came in made it clear that even though people knew who he was, they were okay with it. I don't believe that everyone who voted for him was racist, but his inability to condemn racism was not a deal breaker for them. I don't believe that they all hated everyone who is other than them, but the fact that it didn't disqualify him for the job was really hard to take. And like Joseph, I'm going to acknowledge my privilege. I have a lot of it. And yet my identity as part of the queer community made me feel afraid of the people around me. It made me so disheartened that there would be people who are okay with not accepting my family, with my marriage being questioned, or worse, being nullified. And that little taste made me just even more aware of how my immigrant, Black, and transgender siblings must feel. Completely unsafe and scared, knowing that that's okay for people to affirm. The soil was very hard to break apart, and it gave me concern that the plants would never grow in it. And I went back and forth. The soil is great. The soil is awful. The soil is great. The soil is awful. I'm imagining some of you did too. So let's look at pile number 2. Unity. What is unity? President-elect Biden said last night, let's give each other a chance. It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric, to lower the temperature, to see each other again, to listen to each other again. To make progress, we must stop treating our opponents as our enemy. We are not enemies. We are Americans. He said, this is a time for America, a time to heal. Okay, so let's unpack that. What does that mean, a time to heal, to come together in unity as Americans? I actually find it really interesting. I've had a lot of conversations with many of you this week, and how many of those have been about reaching out to Trump voters to seek reconciliation, understanding, and healing. And I'm not opposed to that, believe me. I think that the more we can have conversations with people and see into each other's humanity, the more we can build bridges. And I want to be very clear here. We are a congregation and a denomination that is religiously liberal, but that does not mean that we are all necessarily politically liberal. Our vision statement says that we strive to be radically inclusive. That means radical and inclusive. I honestly don't know how some Trump supporters reconcile his beliefs and our liberal theology and justice issues, but I can hold that some people who were traditionally conservative in the small c and the smaller government and fiscal responsibility way can reconcile those two very easily. I do believe that we can reach across the electorate to help someone else understand our values of radical inclusion, justice, equity, and the worth and dignity of every single person. But I feel strongly that we can't just say we want unity and inclusion without acknowledging the role of justice. Too many of us, and I particularly mean those of us who are white and privileged, want to think of the last 4 years as a blip, that this is something that we just need to educate some people. We need to help them see the reason. We just need to love enough. We need to convince them. But our people of color know that these are not blips. These are characteristics of America. Our people of color are exhausted and worried. They know that this isn't a blip. It's the America they've been living in for decades and is finally being made visible to the rest of the country. The author John Pavlovitz said this week, If you, like Biden, have had the recurring privilege of sadly shaking your head and saying, this isn't who we are, what you really meant is, this isn't who I've ever had to see us be. What you really meant is, well, this isn't my America. Oh, wait, is it yours? So yes, let's reach out to people and build bridges. But I will not be doing it just for the sake of unity. My goal is to chip away at the rock of others so they can see our vision of collective liberation, not to reduce my vision so it can fit in with their mindset. I will be preaching my words of justice. I will be living my UU values. I will be shouting about equality and equity. And I hope that more people will understand what I've been yelling about and join me so that we can all be free. I will be a model of what more compassionate society can look like. But I will not compromise my values to make myself more palatable to people who are living in that different America. I will not choose to make myself smaller at the expense of people who have been hurt by their thoughts, their actions, and their policies. I will continue to invite them into my vision of beloved community. But I will not forsake my siblings of color who honestly delivered us this election, by the way. I will be working my tail off to make our America one that is worthy of their work. We can be gracious. We can be kind. We can be compassionate. We cannot gloat. But we should not lessen any of our ideals of justice and equity to do that. To use my dirt metaphor, which I may have dug into the ground, another dirt metaphor, this election is not the end of the digging, but it is a clear definition of the soil in which we are going to be planting. Pile 3. Our national trauma. I feel like we've been digging in this hard dirt for a long time and that we're never going to be done. This week, I'm imagining you felt a grand buffet of any or all of the following emotions: joy, sadness, relief, anxiousness, worry, despair, impatientness, anger, pride, distraction, grief, more joy, disbelief. How many more can you add? In truth, we are feeling anything and everything right now. There's a word in Spanish called Zozobra. The literal definition is anxiety, but it is a particular kind of anxiety. Zozobra describes the feeling of being overwhelmed while trying to make sense of everything that's happening. One moment, everything seems normal, like, oh, what a lovely day, I'm feeling good. And then suddenly the frame shifts to reveal a world on fire, such as, a world struggling with a pandemic, a recession, climate change, political upheaval, all the things. What makes Zozobra so difficult to address is that its source is not a personal failing or one particular event. Instead, it comes from cracks in the framework of meaning that we rely on to make sense of our world. It is a complicated feeling, like we're living in different realities from other parts of the world who don't wear masks, think that actions of this past administration were laudable, and just to have a different idea of what right is. Zozobra is a gnawing sense of distress and disorientation as we realize just how fragile we are. So what's the cure to Zozobra? Actually, according to the people who invented and studied it, the cure is community. A community that holds you in your fullness and wholeness, regardless of what you're thinking and feeling. A community that reminds you of your ideals, and a community that reinvigorates democracy at all levels. In other words, our road towards healing our hearts and our minds and our souls is the road we walk together. Community. And probably a nap. I think our country and our world probably needs a nap. So we look at our piles of dirt. We look at the complicated layers of truth that this election has laid in front of us, the joy and the work ahead. We commit ourselves to this vision of collective liberation and healing through the work of justice and building the community that we dream of. And we take care of ourselves collectively and individually so that we can heal from this trauma and continue the work. This is a lot to hold. I'm going to borrow some thoughts from my colleague, Reverend Elizabeth Stevens. Fits perfectly into our metaphor. My beloveds, we are chipping away at a mountain, not a boulder. Calcified structures, 2,000 years of this stupid idea that some of us are more worthy. Some deserve power by virtue of who they are. Erosion is slow work, sweethearts. Celebrate the progress, the triumphs. Celebrate the heartbreaking almosts. Breathe. Rest for a time. Then get up and turn towards kindness. Turn toward your neighbor in need, toward those who are still trapped in the stone. Tell them, I won't give up. Tell them, I am with you. Tell them, for you, I will learn to eat rocks. For you, I will keep chewing, keep grinding, until the mountain crumbles to dust. So might it be. Our closing song is by the radical, wonderful, non-binary, amazing Janelle Monáe. It's Turntables. There's a quote at the beginning of the song by James Baldwin from an interview on PBS, which was included in the film I Am Not Your Negro. Baldwin is asked whether he is fundamentally a pessimist or an optimist about the future of Black America and of the US. And Baldwin begins by saying, I can't be a pessimist because I'm alive. To be a pessimist means that you have agreed that human life is an academic matter. So I'm forced to be an optimist. I'm forced to believe that we can survive whatever we must survive. Let us be optimists and realists and remember to be alive is to be together. Before closing words, we want to invite you to coffee hour after the service, where we'll meet in a large group and then smaller groups. We have so much to talk about. The rooms will be posted in the chat and on the final slide. Visitors, we hope you'll join us. We need to be together, and we're a really friendly bunch. There's also a coffee hour just for kiddos and their families. And as a reminder, please keep checking on each other. Our closing words today are from Bernice King, the youngest daughter of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King. She's the CEO of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. And she wrote this as a tweet during the election season. Kindness matters, but kindness does not equal justice. Civility counts, but calling for civility is not the humane response to justice. Justice is. Love is essential, but love is not a passive, weeping bystander. Love puts in work. Go in peace. Go in love. Go in justice.